Hello, everyone. I am Lily Mae, creator of the Glambitious brand, and I'm excited to bring another dynamic woman visionary to you today. If you're unfamiliar with the platform or this is your first time discovering us, definitely visit theglamceo.com to see the many opportunities that we have for women visionaries and entrepreneurs. And also be sure to follow us on Instagram at glambitious. I am. So without further ado, Miss Kamilah, please introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about who you are.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kamilah Perkins, and I am an advocate for equity in education. I've been a teacher. I've worked in the nonprofit sector. I've started two nonprofits. I'm here to share with you my nonprofit that I'm currently working with. And I'm a mom of a 7-year-old who is a busybody, and I'm also a wife and friend and all the things that women are. We're
Right.
many things to many people.
Right. Women are the most dynamic entities in the world. We always have so many different hats and so many different spaces that, we have to operate in. So tell us, like, what was the driving force behind you pursuing your passions?
Oh my goodness. So it's going to sound crazy, but the driving force really was constantly being told no. I was constantly told no when I would want to do things with students to expose them to college. And it started when my first year teaching, and I asked if I could use some funding that I had for my class for a field trip. And the field trip was going to cover the school bus for a college tour. And so the principal denied my request. And so when I got the request back denied, I was like, well, can we meet? And we met. And she's like, well, they don't need to start preparing for college yet. And I'm like, well, they're sophomores. And she's like, well, they don't need to do that until they're seniors. And I'm like, what? Wait a minute. They're sophomores. They'll be seniors in 2 years. We can't wait that long. And so I was upset, but I was also at the point where I said, I need to do something. And that's how my first business nonprofit was started, where it's centered around students and programming. And we primarily did programming to expose them to college. Fast forward to today, I've taken a different approach where I'm now the funder of people who are doing the work that I used to do. So I work in partnership with schools, with teachers, and parents, looking for opportunities to provide scholarships for students, tutoring scholarships, and college scholarships for undergraduates tuition, and then also teacher grants, because there are teachers who want to do things like I wanted to do and they're told no. And so I want to help fund those ideas and fund those programs that are preparing students for college, that are exposing students to financial literacy in K through 12 education, and giving students exposure to really hone in on what their purpose to do.
I love that. I love that, because oftentimes when people hear no, they get discouraged or, they get dissuaded from moving forward with something they're doing because someone said no, or people said no, or they didn't get the funding right away, or they didn't get the approval right away. But instead, you took that no and you turned it into a yes. And so I think it's so important that we, really embrace the power of no. Like when someone says
Yes,
no, it just means, okay, not this direction,
but
but
no,
another direction. So can you elaborate for people who do get discouraged when hearing no, like how they can kind of turn that around in their favor?
I think the biggest thing is know your why. I think people hear no and they get discouraged and they think, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't do it. And I knew my why. The reason I went into education was because I knew I liked working with youth. So I knew that I liked working with youth at 13. Crazy story. 13 years old, didn't want to go to camp because I thought I was grown. Who wants to go to day camp? I want to stay home by myself. My mom was like, no, not doing it. So I ended up volunteering at the YMCA. Well, that summer, I was a junior counselor. I enjoyed it. I loved it. It was fun, volunteering at the YMCA. I didn't get paid. Wish I had got paid. Couldn't get paid at 13. But that summer, I was able to tap into some things that I didn't know existed in me. And so that summer, the director came to me and said, well, your lead counselor is going out of town with her family next week. And typically when that happened, they would divide the group up. So I'm like, okay, well, what group will I be working with next week when the kids get divided up? And he's like, well, I think you can handle it. I was like, what? So he's like, I think you can handle it. And I was like, you think I can handle 10, 60 year olds by myself? He said, yeah, you can handle it. I was terrified. And let me tell you what I was terrified about. I was terrified because I had 6 black little girls who all had black hair and who all had swimming every day. And I spent the majority of my afternoon combing hair. So I convinced them all to go home and get their parents to braid their hair that weekend so that it would be a quick transition process. Well, what I learned later was that was troubleshooting. That was planning. That was thinking ahead. I just knew I didn't want to do 10 little girls' hair every day after swimming because they had a strict schedule back to back. At the end of that week, I reflected on it and was like, oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was. I actually enjoyed it. I actually like kids. I didn't think I liked kids that much. So in that moment, I said, okay, well, I'll look for other opportunities where I can work with students, where I can work with kids. And it built on that. Well, 10, 20 years later, in that week, I did project management, I did troubleshooting, I did curriculum development, I wrote lesson plans. I had to, manage the day. I had to do customer service with parents and give them information every day about what was happening the next day. I had to manage field trips. I didn't know what that was all called until later, but these were skills that I learned. And I think that's what we need to offer students. We need to give them opportunities to try things out, to, learn some skills that they didn't know they had, and then build on that and then navigate where their purpose is in life. And
Yes.
I think that's why you don't give up on them. When you know what you're supposed to do, you say, okay, not this way, another way.
Exactly. I love that. I love the opportunities that you're providing for the students because I know I often think back and I'm like, man, if I would have had this opportunity or, this insight when I was 16, I'd probably be a multimillionaire right now. And so I love that, you're using your passion to help students in that way and you didn't let a no discourage you. And so, how did you come up with the name of your business?
Well, the name of the business is actually a play on the African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. And I did the motto with that in mind with a little twist. And the motto is it takes a village to raise a child, but it takes education and economics to raise the village. I'm a firm believer that everything in the community or your village, it raises you and it teaches you something. Now, some communities teach some good things and some communities teach some not good things, but the students and the youth in that community are still learning. So I believe everyone's responsible for the development of a youth. The businesses in the community, the churches in the community, the schools in the community, the organizations in the community, the culture provided in the community, all of those things encompass what a student experiences in their developmental years.
I love it. And what do you feel like you love most about what you do?
I love working for and with young people. I knew that. I just shared with you, sorry, at 13. And I think I am blessed to know early in my life kind of what direction I was going to go. God revealed other things along the way, but at the root of it, everything I've ever done has been either for youth or with youth. And I think that's what I love most because this organization allows me the opportunity to help students continue to pursue their goals. And it also allows me the opportunity to partner with other people in the church, in the community, at schools, with teachers directly, so they can be the impact that they believe they should be to the youth that they're in front of.
I love that. There's so much power in collaboration and partnership. And so I know that, you navigating different spaces to have other people be involved with what you're doing is
Mhm.
definitely a key to like longevity with what you're doing and having like a larger impact with, the youth. And, I just love that with your journey, you started with a no, you turned that into a yes. And then we also, have to remind ourselves that when we don't have to seek validation, from other people for our ideas and projects, because when they said no to you, they may not have understood the vision or how imperative it was. And so I'm so glad that, you continue to move forward with it because it definitely takes a village. I think about when I was younger and all of the, the community activities, the church, like all of
Mhm.
that contributed to who I am today. Just,
Mhm.
providing those opportunities to be enriched in different ways and different experiences. So I love that you're an advocate for all teenagers or children children having some of those experiences as well. So as a mom, how are you balancing, your vision with motherhood, with parenthood? How are you balancing all of
Mm. It is a daily balance. Like right now, perfect example. My son is in a year-round school. He's in track out where they're out of school for 3 weeks period,
that? Oh, wow.
and this week he's in golf camp. Well, it rained today, so golf camp was canceled. So I had to have a backup just in case, so that I could have him out of the house during this interview because he would want to come and tell you hello. So I think I think you have to be flexible. I think, and then I'm hard on myself. My husband will tell you I'm harder on myself than anybody ever could be. So I've had to learn to give myself grace. So I think knowing yourself. Um, this week, I knew I had a busy week, so it was crock pot meals this week because I didn't have time to stay in the kitchen doing a whole lot. So that was something I could do at night. It could cook overnight and went in the fridge the next morning. It's 2 meals in there. Everybody feed themselves. So I think balancing and being realistic, giving yourself grace. It's okay if you have to have a pizza night. It's okay, if you forget something or something gets thrown off. Um, Organization is key for me. I have to write it down. I have to see it in multiple places. It can't just be in my phone. It has to also be written somewhere because that writing it down for me helps me to remember it. So and then making time for self. Being married, I want to make time for a date night, but I need to have energy for that too. So you got to, balance your time. A friend once told me, he actually works with Fortune 500 companies, helping people to be more productive. So he helps businesses, do trainings on how to make your, employees be at the highest peak of productivity. And he basically, his number one thing he tells them is you have to know your energy. When you know what your day is going to be, don't spend your energy up on stuff that doesn't mean anything. Today, my energy was this interview. So it was a low key day because I wanted to make sure I was rested, I was prepared, and I was, work through all the technology stuff so I wouldn't get on here and be late. So that's where my energy was focused today. And so I think that learning that from him helped me to realize that everything doesn't deserve the same amount of energy. Some things should get very little energy, and those things that are the most important, that's what you should give your best self to.
Absolutely. I love that. And that is so key for, work-life balance. And then especially as an entrepreneur, learning how to, navigate your time and what should get what effort. Because I know for me, I'm a creative. So I can sit and design a flyer and just take my time for hours. And it's like, Lily, this is not what you should be doing. You should pay someone to design the flyer, pay them $50 and use your time for the, higher end activities. And so that is definitely a lesson that I've had to learn in business is like, hey, everything does not deserve the same amount of
Mhm.
energy. You have to figure out a balance that
Yeah.
works to empower what you're trying to do and not like detract from it. So I love that. And I was also talking to someone today about a book club that she has for women. And I thought it was so profound because as women, we have so much going on. I feel like we definitely need to make that self-care time that you mentioned where we just get away with
Mhm.
a couple of
Yes.
books or, a little book and a margarita or whatever is your flavor, a book and a coffee and digress. So what books, are you reading or what books have inspired you most?
Well, currently I'm reading kind of a twofold. I'm viewing and reading. So I have always loved Frederick Douglass. Since I was in high school, I was enamored with Frederick Douglass. Any student who I've ever taught, they walked in my room, there was a quote from Frederick Douglass. They were like, "Oh, we tired of hearing about Frederick Douglass." I taught the book, I read the book, I love the book. So I'm actually reading an autobiography. Well, not I'm actually reading a book. About Frederick Douglass, where it's taking a look at his back life, his personal life, because he really didn't share a lot about his personal life. He had a lot of family, huge family in Maryland. And so I'm learning a lot more about the man behind the man. So that's what I'm reading currently. But I know you asked me to share some of my favorites. And so my top, I tried to make it two, Lily. I couldn't even get to two. I ended up with four. So Frederick Douglass is one of them. His first narrative, he's written several narratives, but his very first one was very influential in my life. Dream Giver by Bruce Wilkinson is one of my favorites because it centers around purpose, but he writes the book in a very easy way to, in a fun way to read about this journey of identifying your purpose. And then Napoleon Hill. Had to do two books. I can't talk about one book without talking about the other book. So Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich and then Outwitting the Devil are two of my favorites. And as I was looking at the books I chose, I said, these books actually have a lot of symmetry. There's, symmetry in purpose and symmetry in, identifying your gifts and your talents and your identity. With Dream Giver, it's a simple walkthrough how to identify your purpose and embrace it. And Frederick Douglass, he said, this cannot just be my purpose. Slavery is not just my purpose. And his whole life was him creating himself. Branding, since you're a PR, branding, something I saw, a new documentary is out about Douglass. And he was the most photographed person, not just black person in America during his time. And I was like, how is that? He said he wanted to be photographed as much as possible because he wanted to demystify the myths about what a black man was and what a black man looked like. So every time he had an opportunity, he took a picture. He had a portrait done. And I thought that was Brandon before we even knew what Brandon was. And then Outwitting the Devil, Napoleon Hill's, when he talks about, distraction being the number one thing to get people, to not do what they're purposed to do. I'm like, oh my God. I read this book long after I was teaching, and I wish I had knew about it when I was teaching, because I always taught seniors and help them kind of navigate the college transition process. Because I think a lot of times students don't identify what's a distraction and what's not, and how the distraction is what gets you off your game. And if you don't let things easily distract you, you stay focused.
Right. And we are definitely in a very highly distracted, society right now. There's so much competing for our attention, from social media apps. Every day there's a new app or, just something, the news. There's so much constantly competing for our attention. And I do have both of those books too, Think and Grow Rich and Outwitting the Devil. So those are really, yes, two really, really good ones. But, it seems like you've managed to definitely navigate a full life, a full plate, and still pursue your passion. So is there anything else you would want people to know about your efforts or what's next for you?
Yes. What's next, what's happening right now is this is college season. And one of the number one things we want to do is we want to advocate for students to prepare for college. And I believe that college does not start at high school. It actually starts at pregnancy, reading to your child even through the womb. But it really starts with K through 12 education. And we want to make sure that we're providing tutoring scholarships for students, because right now you'll hear the term academic recovery, which is really the academic gaps that exist because of the pandemic, but those gaps were already there prior to the pandemic. I want to encourage everyone, when you hear these terms, please advocate for your school districts to keep academic recovery funding, because our students are going to need that probably for the next 10 to 20 years. And I would say even beyond that, because there's a huge academic gap in K through 12 education. The next thing we have is our college students. They need money for school. So we need you to donate. And I'm asking you to partner. You can partner in a variety of ways. You can be a one-time giver, even though I encourage you to be a monthly giver. You can do quarterly giving. You can pledge as a family pledge what your family may want to give to the organization. And we also have a company match program. And then lastly, we have a new virtual course for College Planning 101 that will be launching in November, along with our college applications, November 15th. And it's also booking season for me. So if this is anything I've shared today is something that you would like for me to come and speak to your organization, your students or staff about college readiness, about purpose, about how to identify your purpose, this is definitely the time to book me, because it's already a busy year and the year hasn't even started yet. I can be reached through villagefoundationfund.org. You can find all my information under the Connect tab, and anything that you're looking to do with our programs for virtual online courses, you can find it under programs as well.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, I'm excited to be able to introduce you to the Glambitious Network and platform. And I just encourage you, to keep doing big things because it is very needed in the community that, our children get as much empowerment and as much of a leg up as possible. So I'm so excited to see you leading the charge on that. And again, for those of you who are new to the platform, definitely subscribe. Visit theglamceo.com to join the email list and connect with us on all social platforms because we love being connected with dynamic women visionaries like Kamilah. So, again, thank you for tuning in. Have a great day.